Are you looking for a podcast where you can hear from real people regarding their real dental drama? If so, then you've come to the right place. Join hosts Bethany Petty and Dr. Rena Kuba as we dive into the solutions we've created and the mistakes we've made while managing dental drama. Let's get started.
Okay, I cannot believe I am asking for this, but I'm preparing because we're mid-December and I know what you're going to hit me with in January. It's my favorite gift you give is that gold setting blah, blah, blah.
Do I hear sarcasm in your voice?
No, I'm never sarcastic. I don't know who you're talking about. So along with that goes like preparing for goals and then meeting with the team. And so it occurred to me, I don't think we've ever done a podcast on how to effectively lead a meeting. And I think you lead a lot of ours. I know ones that we do on our own are nowhere near as effective as when you're there. So I kind of have some thoughts, but about how not to do it. And then I was going to ask you, what are your tips for how do you, at any time of the year, not just even beginning of the year, goal setting, but it was in the forefront of my mind going, these are coming and they'll be here before I know it. And I want to make sure that I, make sure that I'm being efficient and effective because I stress out about it. And I don't want to stress about it. So if I'm stressing about it, possibly other people are too. And if you could kind of talk us through a strategy of how to have an effective team meeting. And again, I can pepper in things that are not good to do.
Yeah. So I agree. This is such an important topic that we have never talked about on air before, but I think meetings can be overwhelming for a lot of people for a couple reasons. Number one, they either turn into just a complaint session. I hear that a lot from clients is, well, we always avoid team meetings because they go badly, because somebody starts complaining and then we just end up having an hour of complaining and it's useless time. And my response to that always is, then there's something wrong with the way that we're conducting the meeting. If it can lead to that, then there's something wrong with the meeting itself. So first and foremost, when we're planning a meeting, we need to think about what is our goal out of this meeting. What are we hoping to obtain out of this meeting? That sounds like a simple question, but to me, it's a very complex question. Every meeting that I'm leading, I am going into it with not only the topics that I want to make sure that I cover, but there's always an emotional output that I want from that meeting. Either it's a feeling of being unified, a feeling of excitement, a feeling of nervous energy about something that we're now pursuing, a feeling of interest in the topic that we talked about so I'm always going for a particular level of content that I want to make sure that we cover, but I'm also going for feelings that I want out of that meeting. Maybe I want confidence. I just had some phone training with a team a couple months ago, and I wrote at the top of our agenda, it was our first meeting together. I'd never had a meeting with them before, and I wrote my goal for that meeting. Goal, confidence in handling phone calls. And it was really cool. We talked about confidence. We talked about a ton of strategies throughout that session, but I kept coming back to, would this help you with confidence? Now that we've talked about this strategy, does that help you feel more confident in answering that question? And I was just back with them recently, and we went back and listened to phone calls, and the one word that I could say about it was confidence. They had a level of confidence in those phone calls that was lacking before. Well, why is that? Because that was our mantra throughout that meeting was confidence, confidence, confidence. And does this help you gain confidence? Does this help you feel more confident? So we've got to have a really clear objective to each meeting that we have, even if the topics are jumbled. Even if it's 10 kind of tiny, weird subject matters all roped into one. Unify that somehow with a goal so that it can feel like a very clearly laid out agenda.
So then who does that? Is that me as the doc, that I sit there and plan the agenda and plan the feeling? Or Who's doing that?
I mean, ultimately, yes. I think the doctor needs to weigh in on this. Even if you've got a really strong manager in place that leads a lot of these meetings, to me, the doctor needs to have input on these meetings. I don't see this often, but I'll see sometimes that when a doctor has a manager, they tend to be hands off in these meetings. Oh, just let Susie do it. She'll put together a good agenda. These meetings are charting the course for your practice. It's not just like, let's get together and communicate, no big deal, it's just a 2-hour meeting. It's an incredibly big deal, and it's valuable time. It's 2 hours that you're paying your team to be in one place for one purpose, which is a meeting. And this can absolutely impact the productivity of your office, the successfulness of your patient interactions, the feeling that your employees have about what they're doing in your practice. Meetings are giving that a possibility. So you need to have time to weigh in with your manager as she's putting an agenda together. You need to be able to weigh in on if that agenda is achieving the goals that you have for the practice and for the team.
I think that is so smart, and definitely not something we did to begin with. I'm trying to think back on the way we used to have our meetings, and you're right. It was something I dreaded because I always felt like I would only bring up a meeting if I had issues. So of course it was a bitch fest. Like, we were all just complaining about something. And then there was people getting defensive. And so the outcome of that was frustration, and were we all on the same page or not? And so I think a couple of things that we started doing, and I don't mean to steal your thunder here or go in an awkward order, but you can help me get back on track. But I think number one, letting people know in advance that we're having a meeting, first of all. 2, saying, like, bring any points you have to me ahead of time. So if I know my meeting is next Tuesday, then I'm like, by Thursday, if you have something you need to talk about, I need to see what it is. Because what would happen is, inevitably we had like the one chatty RDA who would explain an issue and explain it and explain it and explain it. The rest of us are like, we get it. But she'd have like 5 examples. And we're like, we don't need 5 examples. We need the one. What is your point? And her point was to vent, right? Yeah. And so it was like, that's counterproductive, because you're either getting on one of the other RDA's nerves, because that's who you're targeting. The front has no idea what you're talking about. They're not even listening anymore. So I think, to me, like, once I got the topics, I could say, hey, we're not going to talk about this here because it's not the time or place. Maybe that's a separate meeting that I have to have with the RDAs, but I don't want the whole meeting to be taken up. We have 45 minutes and 30 of it's taken up with this one topic. So to me, like, learning to try to be more intentional and go, okay, what are the things that everybody needs to know? So that's kind of how I start my quote agenda. What does everybody here need to know? What is applicable to the front and to the back? Because if it's just a back issue, then why are we going to spend 20 minutes talking about it there? The next thing I would say is so letting everybody know that A, there's a meeting, B, I actually normally don't do this, and I thought of it the other day, and I was like, why don't I do this more often? We had kind of an impromptu meeting, and when I say impromptu, it wasn't on the books initially, but I was like, oh, we need to talk about this. We need to talk about this. You know what? We'll have time next week. So it's only like a 4-day lead up that I gave them. But then 2 days before, I actually typed out and put, these are the 6 things that I want to talk about. And I cut up pieces of paper with that agenda on it. It was like a quarter slip of paper with 6 topics. And I just left it. I said, everybody take one. So that way everybody would know what we're talking about. Because inevitably people come to the meeting and they're like, huh, we had a meeting? Huh, I'm still warming up my lunch? Huh, what was that part? And I'm like, I want everybody to be on the same page because I don't want to repeat ourselves 10 different times. And so it was like, where that idea came from, I have no idea, but I need to remember to do it again in the future. The other thing I would say is, as things come up, and say myself and the front coordinator talked about, we're going to update the paperwork to this. And normally in my mind, that's where it stops. And then it was like, wait. No, the back needs to know that too, because they're going to be looking for this form and we don't have that form anymore. And so we all do need to hear about it. And so I would put that on the agenda. Like, I send an email to myself, or I'll send an email to you and the other team lead and say, hey guys, let's remember this for the next topic. So we kind of keep a running tab of topics where recently our one front person wanted to change how we do our appointment reminders. Well, I knew I didn't want to talk about that in a big meeting because this person can be kind of confusing when she's talking about something. So I'm like, I can just see that causing all sorts of confusion. So I was like, send me, Bethany, the other team lead, your points. Great, we've got it. We're going to talk about this at our next leader meeting. So I made it clear to her, this is not going to be a topic we're going to talk about on the floor in front of everybody, because I frankly don't want everybody's input and confusion and noise, and we come out of it going, we're no step closer to where we are with this. So kind of, thinking about your topic points and being intentional about things that you know are going to be a bitch fest, then don't let that be a topic.
Right.
Save that for a separate time, a shorter time, and then go into that meeting. You know, if you know two RDAs are squabbling about, you know, who gets the last patient of the day, this has been a problem, or when we're going to actually start the sterilizer before the last patient, we're going to come in early and do the next morning. Amy and Sally can't agree on that. The whole office doesn't need to be involved in that.
Correct.
So then maybe that's me going, Amy, Sally, we're talking about this. We're going to have 10 minutes at the end of patient care, and I want both of y'all solutions for why you think, and we're going to decide right then what we're going to do. So I think I've come a long way in leading our meetings, because before it was really just kind of hodgepodge all over the place, and now I'm having to be more intentional.
And that when you have that intentionality to it, it makes it a much more efficient meeting and a more productive meeting, because half the battle is making sure that people know that the meeting is happening, they're mentally prepared for it, they're showing up. And you mentioned an agenda. An agenda, to me, is one of the most effective things that you could do to lead a good team meeting, because then everybody knows what we're going to be talking about. They can have their thoughts formulated. I love when that agenda includes something that somebody else is due to bring to the meeting. When we have multiple people weighing in, or they're responsible for a certain aspect of that agenda, it creates, rather than the doctor or the office manager just wah, 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 kind of think about Charlie Brown, like just constantly talking and nobody's having a chance to participate. When other team members are responsible for a piece of information in that agenda, they're prepared ahead of time. They know when their time is to speak on a certain issue. Assign those carefully. If you've got somebody that is confusing when they talk about things, okay, maybe they don't have a piece of the agenda. Maybe the person who's a clearer communicator does. Or if you've got somebody that tends to veer towards drama and they love to dramatize things and tell stories and become long-winded, okay, maybe they're not responsible for a part of the agenda. But you pick a couple of different people that have categories that they cover. Now, the other component to an agenda is, when possible, I love when the agenda is broad enough that it can be repeatable. So it doesn't mean that an agenda is like, okay, step one, we need to talk about, the first thing on our agenda is proper x-ray technique. We're missing the apex. We've got to talk about that. That's a very specific thing that's probably not going to pop up on every single meeting. Well, let's hope not. But maybe it's category one is clinical improvements. And then those topics can change based on what's occurring that particular month. And then category number two is not like upcoming patient appreciation event. It might be category number two is marketing. And we're informing the team about marketing events that are coming up. So build an agenda that is replicatable so that you're not having to think of it every month. That's half the battle, is you're like, oh, what are we going to talk about this month? Well, no, you've got a pre-planned agenda and you're just plugging and playing. And there may be times that marketing, there's nothing going on with marketing. And you're like, okay, great, we can skip that and on to category number three. But the agenda keeps you moving forward and should prevent some of that drama or cattiness that can come up.
I think the other thing with the drama, cattiness, or whatever, like that was going to be my question to you, is when that does come up, how do you nip that in the bud and move on past it? And I think one of the things that I do, like I kind of in my mind time out, and as I'm listening, I'm like, you've repeated it yourself twice now, and you're about to go for a third time, and I'm or I can tell you've said that twice. Now this person who doesn't want it that way has countered this point. Now the third person's about to come in, and then that's where I'm like, okay guys, like clearly this is a bigger topic than I was anticipating. So let's come back and talk about this, because we've got more things on our agenda that we need to talk about today. But I'm glad we started this discussion. I didn't even realize this was going to snowball this way. Amy, can you make sure to leave a post-it on my desk? Because that way, to me, I'm like, I hear you. I'm not trying to brush you off.
Right.
Clearly, we do need to get back to this, and I will probably forget, but let's come back to this. Like, let's have a deadline. Clearly, y'all have some points here. Maybe let me look at the schedule. I'll get back to you guys on when we're going to follow up on this, but then I need you to go talk about this. I need you to talk about that, and you're saying that this isn't going to work. Well, I need you to tell me why.
Right.
And then we table it, and then we pencil in another meeting for that. And I love your categories idea, because that does keep it. I think that shows that there's a bigger purpose, and we're not going to have this be a bitch session. And it's a good reminder for us to, like, for me, if there are clinical issues, then I know that this is going to be our time to address it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can mentally, and I know I'm like, wait, where are we with marketing? That's okay, because every staff meeting every month we're going to come back and visit this. So it's kind of a built-in reminder.
It's a mentally relieving thing to have. I think especially for a practice owner to know that they don't have to keep all these categories up in their head and find time to talk about them. There is a time and a place that's coming where that category will exist, and you'll be able to talk about the specific example. So it allows you to kind of set that aside and go, okay, I know we're coming back to that. We've got a team meeting coming up in a couple weeks. So
another thing that I like to do that, I don't know, it's going to even solidify what a nerd I am even more. But, when I read these journal articles, or Dental Town, JADA, Pediatric Dentistry Today, Texas Dental Association, whatever, right? Like I love reading these little newsletters. And when I see things that I think like, oh gosh, I kind of forgot about that, or oh, I didn't realize that. So like one article I was reading in JETA from 2 months ago or something like that was something about, it wasn't about sleep apnea, but the part of the article, it did incorporate that, and it was talking about palatal expanders and how that can help. And so we know that, my team knows that, they know we refer to the orthodontist for a lot of times for expansion to help with these things. But the fact that that had a couple of sentences in that article that said like the current data is still showing that this is relevant. So I tore that out, and I have a section later where I'm like, hey guys, we talk about this. I think this article was targeting dentists that don't really mention the airway or mention some of this. So I know we do a good job of that. And look, this is even talking about how this is still a thing. So this article came out last month, and it's still relevant. So for some of our parents that are going, oh, we don't need to go to the orthodontist, my kids' teeth are straight. Well, that's not what I'm talking about. Look, Mom, this article that Dr. Kuba just read and shared with us shows us that this is still. So I think that makes you look smarter to your team, makes you look current, makes your team feel current.
Yes.
And so those are times to share things. Or if I'm being crusty and not wanting to be outwardly crusty, I can take, like, if I've read an article on Dental Town that's like, is your team, worth what you're paying them? Well, according to Dental Town, they've said this. Now, I don't know about y'all, but, this is apparently a thing across the country where doctors are wondering if their staff is asking too much. So I just thought this was an interesting thing to share from around the country. So if I want to, like, be kind of, more less snippy and present it that way, so I just bring articles. And so I think for the most part the team tends to enjoy when I bring something, because it's kind of like when I bring you in, it's not me saying this is something that I found in printed publication that is a topic of conversation going on around the country.
And again, we wouldn't usually carve out the time for that without the meeting agenda in front of us. So to me, it does give us an opportunity for things that we might brush aside, or we might read that article and think, oh, that's interesting. I really should share that with my team, but we don't have a time and a place to do that. And so we just keep brushing it off or pushing it aside. So we could even have, as a part of the agenda, new technology or new articles to review. And if it's not, and your team can be encouraged, like, hey, if you guys read something interesting, feel free to throw that onto the agenda or give the doctor a heads up that you found a good article and we'll talk about that. So it creates some excitement over the things that we are reading. It encourages continual learning. The doctor's displaying that. We're encouraging the team to display that. So I think that's, again, an opportunity that we would miss without a meeting.
To our lovely managing dental drama teammates, team members, we have something in store for y'all that y'all have been asking for. And to me, docs, this is something that you could gift your team members. I'll quit talking. Bethany, roll it out.
Oh my goodness. I'm so excited about this because the one pervasive question that I get on a weekly basis is somebody telling me about an uncomfortable conversation that they had with a patient regarding insurance and how they could not de-escalate the conversation. I get asked this weekly. So doctors, if you didn't know that your teams are struggling through these conversations, they are. So this bonus episode is actually detailing out specific strategies for handling those very uncomfortable conversations.
Which, you're right, as a doc, I mean, I'm sure it's happening some, but I don't go up there, I don't want to go up there, and I don't want to know about it. So I bury my head in the sand, and my poor team has to fend for themselves. And so I'm super excited to have some tools for them. So wait, tell me again, how do I get this?
So you've got to be a subscriber. And December, we are dropping this bonus episode. So you need to subscribe by December 2nd so that you can have access to this content.
Awesome. So that's where as I pull an article, because almost always, at least once a month, there's something that I've read, whether it's from a leadership standpoint or a stress management standpoint, like just something universal. It may not even have to do with dental products or dental anything. It's just about life in general. And if I see something and I tear that out, and I have a folder where I kind of keep that. And then as I think of other things I need to share with the team, I'm putting Post-its and I just stack them on that. So when it's time to go to the meeting, I just take my folder and I've got all my random Post-its for things that I've forgotten.
Right.
But I'm like, oh yeah, guys, don't forget, we've got this event coming up. We need to be talking about this. Hey guys, don't forget, we switched varnish now and this is how we're doing this different. Mm-hmm. Oh, and then I've got this article too. Isn't this interesting that, they're talking about kids now and their diets changing, and we may hear this coming from parents about this new juice on the market, like whatever it may be.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think key things are let the team know in advance. I like the repetitive nature of meetings. If we are getting together once a year for a meeting, then it's hard to develop any kind of rhythm. And I think we miss a lot of opportunities in those months of not having a meeting. I know meetings can be controversial among practice owners. There is a love or a hate with them. There's very, very little time a lukewarm opinion about meetings. I do think they're critical for all the reasons that we've just talked about. So even if that's like, I don't want to pay my team 2 hours a month for a meeting, fine, start small. Start with a quick 30 to 45 minute meeting. Make it a very aggressive agenda. Let that agenda be repeatable. And then in an ideal world, the team knows ahead of time. The team is allowed to put topics on the topic board for you to select from or ahead of time. Then the additional thing is making sure that you have a repeatable agenda so that you're not having to rethink of it every time. And ideally, you have other team members that are contributing to that agenda.
I know you're trying to wrap up here, but while we're at it, I do think it's something that comes up. When should you have these meetings? Like first thing in the morning, midday,
Yes.
At the end of the day? And I know there's pros and cons to all of the above, so I wanted to hear your thoughts on that. And I do also want to add right here too, for the docs that are like, 2 hours, I'm not paying my team. My comment to you is, come on, move forward. Like you're saving pennies, you're penny pinching for something that really should be effective. And so back to the comment you made, a little bit ago, if it's not and it's just a bitch fest, then you haven't adequately prepared for that. So hopefully this podcast helps get you like, okay, this is what I need to change to make this effective and productive. And if it's going to be something productive and get your team on the same page and not just be a bitch fest, then it is worth whatever you're paying them. I would say, like, I'm exhausted after meetings mentally, so I don't like them to be super, super long, which is why when we do them monthly, it can help it from being a 2-hour meeting.
Correct.
But it's worth the money. Like, don't lose sight. Don't get stuck on the tree. Think about the forest. The other thing I would say is, I know people say don't do it at lunch, and I agree because people are so busy eating and there's the noise and all of that. But for us, that's just what works out for us. Bring in lunch, for the love of God. Order a pizza. Let everybody grab their pizza, slice, Chick-fil-A, whatever. Have lunch there. And again, I know you're going, wait, I got to pay them to be on the clock, and now I got to pay for their food. Again, it's an investment in your own practice. Correct. To get everybody on the same page and have an agenda for productivity. It just doesn't make sense not to set yourself up for success. And so-and-so didn't bring their lunch. Everybody's waiting in line for the microwave. Like, that's just going to add stress. Just cut that out. It's $80 for pizzas. Like, move on and order the pizzas. Let everybody get their slice. Sit down, have your notes, have your meeting.
And like you're commenting, it's also more efficient to do that, because if everybody's waiting on the microwave to warm up their food, it can slow the start of the meeting down. If you've got food that's there ready to go, it's a quick, everybody load their plate, we can meet and eat. It doesn't take time away from productivity, which is often a comment I hear, like, I don't want to shut down production for a meeting. I would echo what you've said. It is an investment in your practice, but if you don't want to do that, that's fine. Plan it over lunch, bring in food, take that lunch hour. If you have a lunch hour, you will end up meeting only for about 40 minutes. Because by the time you finish getting patients out the door, let's say you have a noon to 1 lunch, you get patients out the door by 12:05, 12:07. Everybody's got to load up their plate, which takes 5 or 6 minutes. And then you want to be done 5 or 6 minutes at least before patient care starts back. So if you've got an hour, you'll end up with about a 40-minute meeting, which is fine. You can do that as long as it's repetitive every month. You can't skip a month and do a 40-minute meeting. The other thing to think about with this is you can do supplemental department meetings as well. So if you've got a hygiene team if you want to run a 30-minute team meeting per month, that's big picture stuff. And then you can break out into smaller 30-minute meetings throughout the rest of the month. So then maybe that's every week you've got a 30-minute meeting over Tuesday's lunch. The first week of the month is the full team meeting. Second week of the month is the department, the hygiene department meeting. Third week is RDAs. Fourth week is business. And then you repeat over again. That can also create a very efficient ongoing. Some practice owners are like, there ain't no way I'm doing this weekly.
That makes me want to put a fork in my eye.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would not make that. But I think the one, and I think for people that are like, well, I don't want to miss production time. I mean, I think for the most part, there are times where we know we can project in our schedules where we can make time for that. 10 o'clock. Nobody wants to come in at 10 o'clock. So plan for the 10 o'clock after Thanksgiving, because everybody will come in during Thanksgiving break. The Wednesday, 10 o'clock after Thanksgiving break, we know is going to be slow. So find a day every month that tends to be a slower time in your practice.
Yeah, and plan it for that. And I'm not opposed to a lunch meeting. Honestly, by the end, when we plan them for the end of the day, we walk into that mentally very tired. So lunch tends to work the best from an energy level standpoint, from a focus. We can focus during that time. It's a lull in the day that we look forward to. So I like lunch or earlier.
So I would agree. I would not make it for the end of the day. Like, I'm too tired by then. I will say for the middle of the day, morning is hard for us because that's when kids want to get in and it's a very productive time of our day. So I'd never touch that. Lunch is hard because it's like you said, if lunch is from 12 to 1, by the time you actually sit down, the patient it's always going to be the one patient that can't find their credit card, is taking forever to pick their next scheduling appointment, and you can't start the meeting because there's a patient still there. Or that's the day that if patient care starts at 1, patient arrives at 12:30, now somebody's got to babysit that patient and you've missed that window. And then I personally like to have at least 20 minutes for the staff to get 20 minutes to not have to, get the patient out the door, sit, meet, patient's already here, let's go. Like, that's really hard to digest all of that and switch your brain back and forth. So for me, we pick a slow time. Like, I'll tell you, in the summer, we don't have meetings, because it's too busy. In September, we could have a meeting every week. Like, there's not much going on. So looking for those times ahead, but when I'm blocking off, like, on a random Wednesday in September, I'll try to block from 10:30 to like 1, because I know lunch is usually 12, whatever it is, but I want to make sure that we're done by 12:40 before the patient gets there at 1. So that way, if patients are coming in the building, we're done.
Yeah.
Our food's not still there. We're not cleaning up trash and moving chairs around, but also so the team can have 20 minutes to go be on their phones, go take a quick walk, whatever they need to do.
Yes.
And if we started it at 10:30, well, that's factoring in, we're probably not starting till 11.
Right.
Because people are getting out the building, people are getting ready for the afternoon, you're putting your notes, you're finishing up your ledger, whatever. You're setting yourself up because you don't want to hit the ground running at 1 and not be prepared for those patients. So I try to block off, say, from 10:30 to 1. And, a lot of people say that's a long time. Well, lunch was going to be 12 to 1 anyway.
Right.
So maybe it's like 11 to 1, 11:30 to 1. I'm just trying to add in extra buffer time around there so we're not super stressed.
Yeah, because you do want to evaluate how much time you need to properly get through the content. What you don't want to be doing is you've got great points that you need to be able to address with the team, and you've got this one time for this month to address it, and then you're chronically running out of time. Or you're hurrying through the comment, yeah, Sally, yeah, we heard you, let's move on. And then you're just constantly pushing commentary away because you're like, we don't have time for that. That means you've scheduled it too tight. You need to make sure that there's enough time that you can properly get through the content. Questions can be asked if there's clarifying information that people need, and the content is fully grasped by the end of the meeting rather than rushing through it.
It's your investment. You didn't see the totality of your investment by rushing through it, because oftentimes you have either frustration that I didn't get my point in, doc cut me off, or I wanted to add something, I didn't get to add something, or you've got confusion. Wait, what was she saying? Like, what was the point of that? And so it's all diluted out, and then you're back to, well, the team meeting wasn't effective. It wasn't effective because we ran through it, like we didn't plan it properly. So no wonder it wasn't effective. No wonder we feel stressed and like it was a waste of time. Never mind, we're not doing meetings. No. The meeting can be effective. It's just if we've done our due diligence to do it the right way.
And give it the time that it needs. You're going to take longer earlier because you're getting used to the agenda. You're getting used to the flow. You're getting used to calling the meeting to start. Even everybody knows that it's on the schedule, but it's like, who's telling everybody, like, come on, bring your food. Let's get... It takes some time. It takes several months to get into a rhythm of meeting. So give yourself time.
Even something as simple as, where are we meeting?
Yes.
Our offices are small. Where else are we going to meet that we're all going to fit, right? But in our office, there's 3 different spots. We could go to reception, where everybody gets a chair. I don't like reception for that same reason. If a parent is waiting and they're waiting on their ride, or somebody gets here early, what do we do? Ask them to wait in their car while we finish up our meeting? Like, we're not going to do that. So we kind of quit doing reception. We've got a back game area, which is where we tend to do it, or the break room. But I don't like the break room either, because that's where the food is. And it's easy to get distracted. So, but sometimes we do vary it from location to location. Just depends on what we need to talk about. And so, but even thinking about that, as you're getting started with your meetings, where are you meeting?
Yes. And then I think, too, think through the logistics of it. Make sure people know ahead of time, and then remember to communicate the goal of the meeting. So I would start the meeting with that. Hey, by the way, you guys know our agenda, but my main goal today is we've really got to build confidence in this treatment acceptance that we're going to spend some time talking about today. It's under our clinical improvements. My goal is that everybody walks out feeling more confident with presenting treatment, blah, blah, blah today. So let's get going. So that way everybody knows, we know the main point. We've got our normal agenda. We're going to get through all of that, but we've got the main point. And then as the conductor of the meeting, let's say that's the practice owner that's keeping the agenda moving forward, if it starts to get off track, you're well aware because you know exactly the goal you had for the meeting. You set it to the team. Now we're starting to talk about collections. How did we get off on collections? where is this conversation coming from? And you're able to mentally rope it back, like you said earlier. Hey, that's moving into more of a collection category. Hey, Susie, will you write that topic down? I want to add that. I'm going to circle back with you, business team. I'm going to circle back with y'all on that tomorrow. But for now, let's kind of get back to our goal. I want to talk about making sure that we get confident in treatment acceptance. So let's pull back to that, and I'll address that tomorrow. And then you can move back to the point. And then Sally at the front doesn't feel slighted because you didn't want to talk about collections, but everybody knew that wasn't on point. And so then it feels relevant that you cut that conversation off to come back to the main point. So, yeah, I think these are some really good tips. Can you think of anything else?
No, I just think, I'm one of those people who, I think of The Office, no more meetings, no more meetings. Or my husband, he's always like, well, that meeting should have just been an email. So I can definitely, we don't want that to be the vibe of the meeting. But I do think they're key in our office to getting everybody on the same page and not making it a game of operator, because that's what ends up happening otherwise. And no wonder there's confusion all over the place, because I told the clinical team told the hygienist, I'm like, so you can just see where that's going. Yeah. And I think meetings are important. They're not my favorite thing by any stretch, but they are important. Yeah. So we put them on there, and then we try to keep them 30 minutes, because I do try to do enough emails so that I can avoid the meeting. But I think the meeting is a good spot for all of us to come together and make sure that we're all on the same page about whatever issue it is that we're talking about.
Exactly. Yeah, I think they can be powerful for sure. Maybe we need to name the title of this, Don't Be Michael Scott.
Yes.
Should we?
Or Be Michael Scott? Which one is it?
Be a more effective Michael Scott.
Right.
Do the meetings, but do them well.
It's the anti-Michael Scott.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
What's the prison mic? This is like meeting mic, something, I don't know. Something different.
Thanks for joining the conversation today. We hope that you are comforted in knowing that you are not alone, but we also hope that you're walking away with some really great tips and tricks to try in your practice. We value your feedback, so please take a few moments to rate and review the podcast. Finally, we want to make sure that we're covering the topics that matter to you. So track us down on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and let us know what topics you want us to cover. As always, please know that we are rooting for you today as you manage your dental drama.